Hello everyone and welcome on Unofficial podcast. Today is a speedy lightning day and it's because we are going to talk about web performance. We are going not to talk about the snails that move slowly on e-commerce space, but we are going to talk how we can make a fast, like lightning fast websites with great scores that will improve your efficiency and KPIs of your business as well, right? So I'm your host, Oleg Sapishchuk.
And I am your host, Peter Schmalfeldt. Man, I'm excited. Oleg, I have to tell you, this what we're talking about today was some web performance stuff. This seems right up my alley. Can you introduce the guest for us?
Sure. Our guest is a person who actually started the web performance Slack channel in our community. It's, I think, the person without whom that channel would even exist. It's a person that is first in my mind if I think about performance. And if anyone asks me like, okay, I want to improve something, whom I should to go. And that's the person that is in my mind at first. And this person is Rockey. Rockey, hi, how are you? How's it going on your side?
Hey, Oleg. Hi, how are you guys? Glad to be here, guys. It's my pleasure to be here. This is the first time I'm interacting with the Salesforce community in a podcast like this. So thanks for giving me the opportunity, guys.
No, it's thanks to you actually, because when I try to think about web performance, I feel that we underestimate a bit the influence of web performance. We don't discuss much about it, and we didn't actually had like questions in terms of, usually in community, right? If you follow everything, you don't get much questions like, oh, okay, how I can improve my web core vitals, for example, or because of the score performance, or my page is slow. It's more about some functional questions, how I can achieve some functionality. So like, what was your motivation behind starting web performance Slack channel? How did you came with that?
Oh, for me, I think few things came together. So I started, I believe, that channel in around December 2019, roughly, I think now almost 2 years ago. And that time I was working with some of the clients on the web performance. So generally I don't go that deep in the technical topic, but this is an area where so much going on. Google was talking about core web vital, things were moving at a fast pace. And I happened to join a conference in 2019 in Amsterdam. Which is Perf now, where who's and who's of this community actually attends. And when I went there, I learned a lot of new stuff. And I was working on a client project actually on this one. So I started going deep, and I realized that a lot of time I just want to compare one of the client performance with others, right? So where do I go? Whom do I ask, basically? Most of the Salesforce site, if you especially, let's say there are two apparel retailers, 80% of the time, the site structure is same, the functionality is same. So you expect performance levels to be kind of same, assuming both are on SFRA or both are on site genesis, some sort of parity, right? So I was creating a lot of this video comparisons using the synthetic monitoring tools. And I wanted to basically discuss with the community. So I think the way I started, I started creating those videos and started putting those in, which was the easiest way for people to see the performance, right? And that's what I was doing internally with my clients. And then I saw the traction. People started asking questions, and the community grew from, I think now it's roughly 370 people. So that's how it started actually. And my personal interest in this topic started from 2019. I started going very, very deep into it, made a lot of friends in the community. Within Salesforce, outside Salesforce also. And yeah, that's how it started. And I hope we can continue this.
So if anyone just started to listen to us and he wants to become a part of that conversation, right? He wants to monitor what the new stuff over there, maybe he wants to share also his data. So how they can access that channel is like, do you have some special form that you are like, it's a private closed channel and it's by invite, or people can just join the community, go there? How does it work?
So there are, first of all, let's talk about the channel which we have on the Salesforce Slack, right? The unofficial Salesforce Slack. So we have a channel for web performance there, which anybody can join. You just need to know the name of the channel. And I believe channel is called Web Performance. So you just search in the Slack and you'll find a channel and you can join. And then other than this particular channel where it's only the Salesforce community, I'm part of another sales web performance at a Slack where it's only invite only, and where the people from various browser vendors, the CDN vendors, the different e-commerce platform providers, the likes of Google core team member who runs this whole Crux team, they're all there. It's invite only, but it's not difficult to join. If anybody wants to join, I think we can put in the podcast description a link, and people can basically just request via that link, or just ping me directly message on a Salesforce unofficial Slack, and I can help get the access. I think just one caveat: if you are new to the topic, you may find it too technical, and sometimes things going too deep, the discussion get really deep sometimes, because we're talking about the intricacies of Chrome or Firefox or some CDN providers. So if you don't want to go that deep, you stay in the Salesforce unofficial channel. But if you really are passionate about this topic and want to explore more, then you can join this other Slack workspace. And I think one good thing about the community is no question is a dumb question. You can ask anything, very basic questions to very, very technical questions, and most of the questions will be answered on that Slack.
You're so right. I sometimes struggle to put a lot of efforts into educating our community, just to saying, as you said, there are no dumb questions. Every question is good, and people sometimes either afraid to ask a question. So they might go into a private messaging, just reach out privately and asking the question. And you're like, this is a good question, just go ask over there. And then they like, I don't want to. Can you post a question? Or can you do that? And I'm like, okay, fine, I can do that. I understand frustration of the person, but I'm just trying to do my effort just to say there are no stupid questions. We all been there. If you just start your career, you're a junior, it's fine, just ask the question. And you don't need to delete the question. If you got an answer, keep it, because tomorrow there'll be another person who will have the same particular question. Might also think this was a dummy question, right? But it's not. So he'll go and check over there. And with that, it's all about the culture, right? In some sense, it's all about the culture of the community culture. So how you would build a web performance culture, right? How you would actually influence people to think about the web performance?
So I think it depends whether you're talking about within a community, which is a developer-focused community, where I suggest basically no question is a dumb question, ask anything, and there needs to be few people who need to champion the cause. So I can try to help wherever I can, and if I don't know the answer, I will go and ask fewer people, because when I don't know the answer to a question being asked, I am also curious, and I'm going to ask that to a different group. Which to more experts, and maybe come back to this group, right? So sometime that may happen. And when it comes to the building culture within a retail organizations, that's a different beast altogether, actually. When you go outside the engineering teams, it becomes a very, very different skill set. You need to talk a language which is very non-technical. So give you an example, right? In a very typical retail organization, you may have a UX team. You may have an agency which is building the content for a particular retailer. Typically, it's outsourced, whereas an agency may be putting content slot or some sort of CMS and things like that, right? Where they may be adding images, videos, and all that, right? So that may be another stakeholder there. And then stakeholder which gets all the blame typically is the marketing, right? Where they'll put a Google Tag Manager and will basically keep adding everything there. Now, sometimes the Google Tag Manager may be managed by your own team, engineering team, or sometimes that also is outsourced, right, to another agency. So worst case scenario is you are working with at least two agencies, a UX team, an engineering team, and interestingly, in my experience, I have had to include InfoSec as a stakeholder also, because there was some solution which InfoSec put, like bot prevention and things like that, which degraded the performance. So I had to educate them. Now that was the group which never heard of Core Web Vitals. They were living in their own world, and they wanted the bot prevention on every single page and all kind of stuff, right? So I think the first thing it starts to identify your stakeholder within your organization. Are you dealing with agencies? Are you dealing with your own engineering team or an SI partner, or where the design team is, and then bring all of them together in a single forum. So one of the things which we did with our client, brought all these teams together for a day. Peter, you have a question?
Yeah. So I this is I'm pretty passionate about web performance stuff. It seemingly almost seems like some companies can overlook this very easily because in reality the roles are kind of departmentalized, right? Like the people individually working on parts. You'll have somebody who's working on content, somebody's doing like front end development, somebody doing back end development.
Yeah.
But eventually it all comes together, and that's where these things start to happen. So to me, it seems like the just tracking on the performance issues is one big caveat of where these things kind of fall apart. So I'm like interested on just the like tooling that might be involved in some of this stuff and performance for this, like just like how you even go about tracking this kind of stuff, and then doing anything about this.
There are a lot of different toolings available, and it depends on each different situation, each different organization. Sometimes you may have the tooling and you may not have the tooling. There is free tooling available, and there are the paid tooling available, right? So if you, I basically when I talk to my clients, I basically think of anybody who can put anything on the website. Okay, that needs to be responsible. That particular team needs to be responsible for putting that on the website, and they can have a negative impact on the website, right? And you need a way to measure it. So there are tools in the industry like web page test, which everybody is familiar with, which is freely available, and developers typically use that. Then you have some insights available from Google Analytics, which I don't typically recommend, but if you don't have anything, then it's better than basically nothing. Then you have the Google Search Console, which has the bunch of insights in it. My personal experience has been that a lot of developers are not given the access to the Google Search Console, so they run blind in the organization. The access is kept to the marketing or somewhere else. And then apart from this free tool, then you can go for a synthetic monitoring tool like SpeedCurve or an equivalent. I'm not recommending any specific tool here. I personally have used SpeedCurve and I like it. And then if you are reaching a maturity level, then you possibly can go with like RUM, which is real user monitoring, and you can use, again, SpeedCurve provides a RUM tool, or there are a bunch of other Akamai Impulse and Dynatrace. You pick a tool and you go deeper into it, right? It all depends on the maturity level. And sometimes I think the teams are not given the budget for all these tools. So they try to do what they can. And if you don't have any budgets, then at least try to use Core Web Vital libraries to gather the basic data yourself and see what you can do with it.
So we just briefly discussed about tools. We mentioned budget, and we talked about the people. How we now connect all three dots, right? So how, for example, I, as a developer, can get the tool, and for the tool, I need to pay a license, right? So where I get the budget, and how then the budget, it's all about some person who will be my sponsor who has to fund it. So how we then have to explain to that person that we need to this tool, like, you said about the language. So it's about, I don't know, just telling that we can get, like, we are losing money because of performance. So how then, like, you discuss all of this?
Yeah, I think it used to be a little bit more difficult a couple of years ago, but at least if you talk to your marketing stakeholders and because of the awareness created by the Google in the recent, like, last 2 years, at least you will find that in most of the cases, the teams have heard of at least Core Web Vital or Lighthouse. Okay. They may not understand the technicalities of it, but they know this has a SEO impact and things like that. Okay. They would have read somewhere something about it. So use that to your advantage. You can always create those web page tests using the free web page test version, and you can just see that create those videos and just show to your stakeholders and see how fast the site load of you and your competitors. Always use competitors. identify 4 or 5 core competitors, create a comparison videos, and if you come at the top, really good. But if you are not come at the top, then you show those videos to your senior stakeholders and show them. Anybody non-technical can understand those videos, right? And basically can see, are we really this slow? And then it gives them a surprise, because most of the time they are on a Wi-Fi and they're not realizing this. So you create those videos, and some of the synthetic monitoring tools are not really very expensive. If you just wanted to sign up for a trial and create some basic videos and do basic monitoring of some key pages. So try to find a small budget. It can be like a couple of $100 to start with. And then once you have a little bit of backing, then you can always add more credits, try to track more pages, try to track the whole customer journeys and things like that. Just start very, very small. And I'm sure everybody can convince the business for a couple of $100 budget, and then you go from there. And then you may have a maturity to go for a RUM solution a little bit later. So start small and then go from there.
So when you say start small, I'm actually thinking about Commerce Cloud tools, because if, for example, if we speak about Salesforce Commerce Cloud customers, right, they already have some tooling from Commerce Cloud. And we mentioned right now, so in order to make comparison, we're also talking about external tools. So I do understand that in order to make this comparison, I have to use external tools, because I cannot maybe you can, I don't know, say if I'm wrong, but you cannot test other customer websites with my Commerce Cloud tooling. You have to use kind of external tooling. So what then will be the difference? How you then would use external tooling vs Commerce Cloud tooling? And actually, do you recommend using Commerce Cloud tooling for the performance or not?
Yeah, I personally believe that the Commerce Cloud tooling is not sufficient. So you'll always need an external tool. Commerce Cloud has tooling on controller and the pipeline and those kind of data. So you use to your advantage to fix wherever you have a degradation. But you're always going to need an external synthetic monitoring tool. Now you don't need to pay you don't need a paid version. You can do this on a web page test for free and create those video strips. So that's pretty simple. It's very manual. You can't schedule things and all that. And a paid tool will let you do that, run every day, create those videos on an ongoing basis, create some alert and things like that. But if you really wanted to create these video strips after every release, let's say, and let's say you're releasing every week or every 2 weeks, then you can do that every 2 weeks manually. And it doesn't take a lot of time. You can do in 10 minutes basically and send a quick video of comparison of performance to the stakeholders. So that's what you can. You always gonna need an external tool.
Yeah. There's a really helpful tool actually, just in your browsers. A lot of the time that I know that front end developers and back end developers could take advantage of. Like the one that gets overlooked a lot, actually, I think, is the networking throttling that people can mimic. And so for people who are focusing on mobile development specifically, like there's issues with, and everything you said, Rockey, about video is amazing, because for us developers who are working on things, we can actually see the problem. But even testing it, you've got issues with like lazy loading or content that you think is being correctly lazy loaded, but it's not. And then you see your network being filled up with network requests and everything's going slow. The more you scroll, things happen with that. There's the ability to track just even like the performance of scrolling itself is also like as a web performance issue. So do you have any like personal, I'm curious, like if you have any personal favorites of yours of just like free ones that people could use that maybe are just overlooked or people don't think about all the time?
Oh, so for the free ones, I use this tool called Treo, TREO, just to look at the historical crux data. The data updates basically second Tuesday of every month, and you can subscribe and get an alert email. I basically subscribe to that, and every time I get that alert, first thing I do is take a screenshot and share the stakeholders. That's pretty free, and you don't need to go to use Crux API or anything like that. Very, very simple tool to use. So Treo is one of my favorite tool. Web test is all-time favorite to use it, and I think everybody should use that. Without that tool, this industry won't exist. I think that's how it is basically.
obviously all these like people are working on these things, and as these tickets are coming in, like how does a business figure out which ones they should start first and which ones might not be as important, right? Because there's obviously going to have to be a choice to be made on how to prioritize this stuff, and it can blow up pretty quickly. So how do you pick, and who gets the pick, I guess, as far as that process goes?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. And I think before I answer that, how do you prioritize? You need to understand basically how the crux works and how it's calculated, right? And where the biggest, you're going to get the biggest impact, right? So a lot of developers actually jump into the web performance without understanding how actually crux works and what Google is actually looking for, right? And there are a lot of misconception in the industry, and which result in a lot of misprioritization, actually, right? So to give you an example, like a lot of people do not realize that when we are looking at the crux data, it actually also includes the logged in pages. Yeah? So things like my account, order tracking, the data is included for that. A lot of people just think, oh, Google can't actually crawl my sign-in pages, which means that this data is not included in crux. That's how people see it, because they're used to of not having logged in pages into the search index, the Google search. So they think it's not included, but crux is different. Actually, the logged in page data is included in crux, right? So you need to get your concept right first, basically how the crux is actually working. And crux also works based on the amount of traffic to a particular URL, right? If a URL does not have a lot of traffic, it's never going to make a cut into the crux. And if the crux does not have the data for the URL, it's not going to treat it any differently. So you need to actually look at a lot of your data first. Go to the Google Search Console, look at what type of URL are more indexed, and especially it's very easy in the e-commerce, right? If you see e-commerce, there are home pages, category pages, listing pages, and product detail pages, right? These are the pages where most of the traffic actually is concentrated. You may have a use case where you have a special reward program and it's very popular, so that may be a page behind the login which is popular. So you need to look at basically your data, what pages are popular, where, and in terms of the traffic, which pages get a lot of traffic, right? So typically listing pages get a lot of traffic on an e-commerce website. And if you're trying to optimize number of URLs actually which are passing this threshold, then you want to look at the listing pages, because you may have a lot of listing and subcategory pages and things like that, right? And then if you focus all your effort on optimizing home page, then it's going to only improve just one URL. Okay? And then if you go to, let's say, PDPs, it's going to improve a lot of different URLs, but some of the PDPs may not even have enough traffic and may never be even part of the crux database, right? So once you understand how the crux is working, what it's doing, then there are multiple approaches, right? You basically look at with whatever tooling you have, whether it's a synthetic monitoring or RUM or whatever tool you have, just see where the most problem actually lies, right? Where the degradation is. And remember, the Google starts to give you any advantage of this threshold being passed when a URL passes all three thresholds. If a URL does not pass all three core web vitals, it is not given any extra weightage. That's what the Google clarification is, right? So if you have, let's say, hundreds of URLs which are failing on all three core web vitals, then you are in a situation where you'll have to really look at prioritization. But let's say a situation where you have a huge number of URLs which are passing two core web vitals, but one specific core web vital like CLS is just on the border and it's not passing, then you want to focus on that particular core web vitals in the short term and make sure that you turn that to green, so that you start to get the benefit of the whatever weightage Google is giving you in the search engines, right? So I think before you even prioritize, first try to understand how things work in the background, how the crux is working, what does it mean, what Google is basically advising you to do it. And sometimes the developers do not have time to go that deep into it. And that's where I think be part of the right communities, follow the conversation, and once you have that, then another question comes is that generally the developers will get a lot of best practices. Do lazy loading, do the server-side rendering, and do this and do that, right? Do Salesforce host custom fonts. You name it technique. If you were to list down all the performance optimization technique, there will be 20 or 30 different techniques. And now you need to figure out which one do I apply. And a lot of time, even if you apply, you have no way to measure it. Give you example, TLS. Somebody say, do TLS 1.3. Even if you enable that, you don't know how to measure it actually, which tool to use it, because the optimization is going to be in 5 to 10 millisecond benefit. You're not going to get more than 10 millisecond gain there typically. So it becomes very, very difficult. Sometimes you need to take a faith-based approach and just apply best practices no matter what. But sometimes even applying a simple best practice may result in a degradation. And then you realize that you don't have enough tool to actually see whether what you did was right or wrong. And a very good example of that is lazy loading. When a lot of developers implemented lazy loading, they also lazy loaded the hero image, which actually degraded the LCP. And everybody thought why it's doing that, but because you blindly applied that best practice. So I think my suggestion will be just to understand the basics of Crux, and then list down all the performance techniques. Don't go after everything. Avoid anything fancy and new, which Chrome has released just now, because typically it happens if Chrome releases something new, it takes at least 6 months for it to get baked in. There may be sometime bugs, and there may be sometime regressions. So you don't want to jump onto anything new and fancy immediately, unless it's a very easy to implement and very easy to roll back. So keep that in mind. I've been to a place where I will basically deploy something very, very new, and there'll be regression. And then you actually took the sprint bandwidth and also didn't get anything. So I would say wait for 6 months before you jump onto anything new. That will be another thing you can do to avoid a lot of noise and the new things which appear from time to time in the industry.
So thank you for that, Rocky. I mean, those best practices recommendations are really key in order to get most out of performance. What about then Salesforce Commerce Cloud clients? Are there any specifics that they can apply or need to consider when they want to get the best out of the platform? Did you have any experience comparing to like generic industry and then specifically for Commerce Cloud? Is there any specifics that customer has to think or, apply? Or it's the same rules actually for any platform?
I think there are some SFCC specific nuances, right? For example, a lot of SFCC clients may not be using a dedicated CDN, and they'll be relying on eCDN. And some of the capabilities on eCDN is recently actually released via just only the API, which many developer may not be even aware. There is no way to actually configure those in the business manager today. I think a couple of things which I've worked with the eCDN team in this SFCC. One was, I think, broadly compression. Another was HTTP2 prioritization. So some of these techniques are available via eCDN API and not from business manager. So I don't believe many SFCC clients are currently using those. And these are just a simple switch. You don't need to do anything. You just need to basically invoke the API once, toggle a switch via API, and then you get the benefit. Now, there is not enough awareness in the community about these things. So you may not be getting these obvious benefits, which are no-brainer, actually. And I have posted about this in the Slack channel before. But these are the things which any SFCC clients can do if you are on eCDN and not having your own dedicated CDN.
Okay, so if you listen to us and you didn't update it, go to Slack channel, go to Web Performance. We now have unlimited history. It's not wiping out. Thank you, Salesforce, for support on this one. Thank you, Slack. So now you can go over there. You can see about posts from Rocky. Go enable API and leverage all that CDN can give to you. That's a great tip. I guess, like, if we have to call it, if it was at least one useful tip over here, okay, we have multiple already, but that will be a key for our Commerce Cloud customers. Okay, if I may, I want to just jump a bit, maybe more technical, but there is some stuff that I was reading on the internet and I don't quietly understand. Maybe it can sound like Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter. I think there was also like a part of that. He went to the professor and was like, also, Professor, sorry, I was in the library. I was reading like a book and there was one term that I don't clearly understand. Can you explain to me? So can you explain to me and to our audience what is Web Almanac and what is HTTP Archive? Like, what is that? I saw it everywhere, but I don't understand. What is that?
Okay. So, I think there are two or three components of this, right? So let's talk about the Web Almanac first. So think of a Web Almanac is a state of a web project. And this is an annual report which gets published. I think has been published now for last 3 years. And in this report, a lot of volunteers from community and the expert in specific areas come together and try to summarize what happened in that particular year. So this report typically consists of around 20 different chapters. There's a chapter on JavaScript, there's a chapter on the accessibility, the performance, the security, the e-commerce and the CMS, and stuff like that, right? So it's a very big community of developers, the experts in the industry who come together and contribute to the topic. Now, how do they actually get data? So they use something called HTTP Archive to get the data. So when you and I are browsing internet on Chrome, we basically opt in the beginning, right, to share some of our data, browsing data with Google anonymously. And Google basically uses the data for technical performance reason, and that's what ultimately results into the crux, right? So Google, when it shows you the crux data, it's looking at you and I browsing a particular website and recording the data. Now, what Google does is basically that every month it provides a list of all the domains across the world which pass a certain traffic threshold. And for example, in the January, roughly 8 million domain were above the threshold. So Google provides this the list of the domains, and it's publicly available. Anybody can actually get the data, and then this community, which is responsible for Web Almanac and HTTP Archive, what we do is we have a monthly crawl where we crawl all of these 8 million domains and run through them web page test and calculate the lighthouse scores. And basically also see what are the various technologies used on a specific page. So we may identify the site as being using the Salesforce Commerce Cloud versus SAP Commerce Cloud, and we gather this data month on month, every month, and then publish the findings at the end of the year. But the data is available every month, and typically, since the crux data from Google is only available second Tuesday of the month, these reports get updated second Tuesday of the month, which you would have seen me putting on the Salesforce Slack channel, right? So every month there is a crawl which crawls 8 million domains, looks at their crux scores, looks at their lighthouse scores, and looks at what technologies are used, and then you can do a lot of funky stuff with it.
So it seems like there's a lot of really helpful information on the history of basically web performance over time. I'm curious how someone in the Salesforce community could actually benefit from this information. Like, how would they even go about finding, what trends might be happening, or what other kinds of information could somebody get from this?
Yeah, so I think the community provides some dashboard built on the Google Data Studio, which are self-service, and we can put a link in the podcast description, where you can compare the Core Web Vital for Salesforce Commerce Cloud with other enterprise platforms like SAP, Oracle, HCL, or for that matter with Shopify, Wix, or BigCommerce if you wanted to, right? And see how the origins on a particular platform compare to the other platform, right? And you can break this down at country level, so you can see so a lot of people see actually, right? Is Shopify the most performing platform in India, or is there a local player out there? Or the same in Latin America, for example, right? Because certain platforms may have a focus in certain geographies and things like that. So that's a very basic thing you can do. And then you can go deeper. So Go ahead, Peter. Before I tell you the deeper stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, just you mentioned that it can compare platforms. Like, do you have like what those platform comparisons are? Like, is there a clear winner? Hopefully, it's Salesforce.
In the enterprise space, I think the most of the enterprise space platform are typically not doing very well. When I say very well, generally if you see, the only 10 to 15% of the origins pass the all core web vitals when it comes to the enterprise space, right? Salesforce. So in the January 2022, I think let me just quickly check. In January 2022, if you see, the SAP actually was performing best, where roughly 18% of the origin pass core web vitals on SAP Commerce Cloud, and the same number for Salesforce was 15. Yeah, but 18 has been the best ever percentage number there for these enterprise platforms. But if you include something like Shopify or Wix, then the number goes to 50-60% sometimes. So there is clearly a problem in the enterprise space, because sometimes it's not only about the platform, it's all about the organization as well, right? There are other challenges. Big enterprise sometimes move a little bit slow. Whereas a SaaS platform like Shopify and Wix can do a lot of changes at the platform level, but they may have other challenges, like where they may have easy to install apps which may degrade. So there are different set of challenges there. But yeah, the good thing is that the number stats are improving month on month. But so from time to time we see a degradation, and that's why the platform provider should pay attention to.
So, Rocky, you said that Shopify, because it's like a platform, right? It's platform shared by all the customers, actually the same, let's say, the same code, right? It's the same view. Maybe they just change styling, but actually, let's say UI, UX, it's mostly the same. It's driven by the platform, so it's easy for them to apply. What, in this case, can Salesforce itself and Salesforce Commerce Cloud product team in particular can help to do to help their customers? Is it more about monitoring tool, or as you said, it's better to use external tools? What, in your opinion, Salesforce can do itself, right, to help customers to improve those scores? Because even like, let's say, the competition, right, SAP Commerce, you said in January had 3% more than Commerce Cloud. So I would say that like Salesforce would be interesting to improve, right? To be a top one in that score for in the future. So, and I consider yourself as an expert in the web performance, and you use a lot of tools. You also work with a lot of Salesforce Commerce Cloud customers. So what Salesforce can do to help?
I think Salesforce can do obviously a few things here. So one of the things I was talking about, what insight you can get from HTTP archive, right? So HTTP archive tracks roughly 4,000 Salesforce sites, which I think is a pretty good number of Salesforce customer base. And if you were to query this database, you can see, and I think Salesforce already has data themselves, and sometime maybe I should query and put it for the sake of the community. You can actually even see the simple things like what percentage of Salesforce clients have enabled broadly compression, okay? Which is just a simple toggle. Now that's something which I can query using this data. I can also query what percent of Salesforce client have TLS 1.3 enabled. I can actually query stuff like that, and start to put on common forum, where basically you can simply send your account managers can actually go to the clients and basically say, by the way, here's two small features you are not using it, which can immediately help you. The other thing Salesforce can do, which I think this idea came to me from Shopify. So now Shopify has two things, right? Where people build this storefront themes and people build apps. Now Shopify has a gating process where when you build a theme or app and you submit it, it goes through a review process. But now Shopify added some of the core web vitals, the gating criteria for those apps or themes to get approved. So the requirement of your theme should cross this much of accessibility score, this much of a performance score, lighthouse score, and things like that, right? I don't believe there is any such gating criteria on the Salesforce cartridges. So when the Salesforce cartridge is approved, Salesforce has its own process, but I don't believe, and I may be wrong, and if somebody listening in the Salesforce, feel free to correct me, but I don't believe there is a performance criteria there. So this is coming from an experience. We were using a cartridge for a client, and where we were asked to upgrade the cartridge for a security reason, and we upgraded, and performance degraded immediately. And the reason was because they didn't use one of the best practice from Salesforce. So when we highlighted, the vendor actually corrected it, but that should have been possibly caught during the Salesforce review process. So Salesforce can tighten that process, can add few more conditions. For example, if a vendor is building a cartridge, let's say hypothetically it's a review provider, they should not be integrating in such a way that it causes a CLS, because it's very easy to cause a CLS by loading a JavaScript and things like that, right? So something like that, Salesforce can start putting controls. That's the one thing Salesforce can do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Cygenesis times. I don't believe anything of this was done. SFRA did better. Maybe not till the way we can do as of today. Just slightly better, but still, I feel also behind. Don't quote me, but I still a bit behind what we actually performance ideal would be. What I love actually, what PWA Kit is doing right now, if you look, they pay a lot of attention to the core orbitals to make sure that even that starting point, that reference application is highly performant and it's working really well. So once again, don't quote me, but I feel they do check this. At the same time, link cartridges, I honestly never seen. I certified 2 cartridges myself in the past when I worked for the partner. So we built some cartridges, did certifications. I don't recall anything about, as you said, right? Like checking if like our link cartridge will not impact the performance of the website in terms of core orbitals, web performance. Of course, according to the platform, there would be some checks if we are not hitting, I don't know, database tire all the time, so we should leverage caching, we should leverage application tire, other stuff, but not actually something that Google tracks much themselves.
Yeah, and if I can mention one more last point there, the some of the thing with Salesforce, the Shopify and some of the other platforms are doing is they're providing a basic version of RUM within the tool. So what they're doing is taking this Core Web Vitals library and including by that default on every Shopify store. And when you log into your Shopify admin, you can see your Core Web Vitals. Okay, and they are doing this out of the box in the platform. So even if you don't have a dedicated RUM tool, you get this data. And this is what they're doing. So Salesforce, I know it's an enterprise client, and most of the clients possibly have the budgets to implement a RUM. But maybe Salesforce can give an option where you can just toggle a Google Web Vitals library and at least get basic RUM data in Business Manager or somewhere else if you struggle as an engineering team to get budgets for a dedicated tool.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot of good work with this already, the Unofficial Slack, and then just in general the Salesforce community with the web performance stuff. And so you're helping us out. What can the Salesforce community do to help web performance?
I think Salesforce community can be more vocal and more sharing of the knowledge. I've seen very few case studies coming out of the Salesforce community. We can share more and share whether in a Slack or on a public case study, whatever the means and mediums are, or do a podcast like this. That doesn't really matter. I think what matters is sharing. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see more participation in the Slack channel. And I've seen sometime I keep sharing, and that's just my nature. And I get a lot of encouraging words from the community about the stuff I'm sharing. But sometimes I actually fear what I'm sharing. Is it useful or not? Or is it too technical? Because as I said, I'm part of this other group where there's a lot of technical stuff being discussed. And sometimes I will copy paste, but I don't copy paste too technical stuff. Otherwise the audience will get lost. So for me, I think if the community can get engaged more, give a little bit of feedback, and then I can also learn from others. This space is so fast moving that I took a 1 month vacation in January, and I was looking at the data for Core Web Vitals today, and suddenly saw the CLS scores improving for all e-commerce platforms. And I tweeted about this today morning, and then somebody from Google actually explained what happened. And if you were a developer and you were looking at this, you may spend weeks and months figuring this out actually yourself. So a simple public tweet by me gave me the answer in 15 minutes. And I would strongly recommend that no question is dumb question. I always ask dumb questions on Twitter or Slack. So please feel free to do so and just participate.
And what I love that you said about the sharing, how my son usually says to me if he wants me to share with him some cookie other stuff, he's saying, "Daddy, sharing is caring." Right? So let community and anyone who listens to us, let's share our knowledge. And that's why we have a community, right? That's why, I mean, I'm so passionate about that. Peter and I, we have this podcast where we trying to invite the guests to share the knowledge, because I'm with you, right? I feel that we in the past years, we didn't do enough effort that we can do in order to build this community, in order to share the knowledge and help each other. And we're on the right track, right? We are moving over there. I guess we're still not there when people would like to, but we are there. Like, we're moving. That's the most important part. And Rocky, I love all the stuff that we discussed today. Budgets, people, toolings, web HTTP archive. I actually, in the Web Almanac, I'm actually thinking, oh, I love to play with the data. Should I get my hands on it? No, I didn't know about that actual storage that we can go. You can pull even by the attributes if someone applied or not applied. So I certainly feel that will be super useful. And
we're always looking for volunteers in that project, Oleg. So if you wanted to write the Web Almanac chapter for the next year, you can volunteer.
Okay. Noted. Thank you for the invite. In every our podcast, we have a chapter in the end of our podcast where we give a time for our guests to share their message to the community. And we are at that moment of our podcast where we talked about everything we wanted about the web performance theme. And now it's your time for the message for the community. Rocky, what do you want to say to anyone who listens to us?
I think my message to the community is with respect to web performance, right? As I said, we already discussed, share as much as you can. Talk to everybody, every stakeholder within your teams. Sometimes it just feels very frustrating with the churn in the team. You will educate one person in the UX or one person in marketing, and 6 months later they are gone, and then you start all over again. So sometimes it's frustrating, but the more we talk as a community and industry about this topic, the more the awareness will be there, the easier it will become for us to actually achieve our end goals. As if you are an engineer who does not have a lot of experience, trust me, you will not find a more supporting community than web performance in the industry. It is one of the most supporting community out there, whether it's within Salesforce or outside Salesforce, on Twitter or on Slack. If you just want to get involved, just message me directly, and then I can handhold you guys. You can become volunteer to some of these projects, do small GitHub PRs to start with. And who knows what, if your interest is there, then you may even work in core Google teams. Google teams hire in this space all the time. They look at dev relationship people, they look at the core engineers, and it's a very, very supportive community, especially from my last 2 year experience. And I made a lot of good friends within Salesforce and outside Salesforce by being part of this community. So I would like to see more people taking advantage of this community and contributing to the community at the same time. So that's something I think I'm happy to handhold people, and if somebody wants to do it, and if somebody is very shy or not want to do a public speaking, public sharing. But I think, you're going to start somewhere. If you're passionate about it, if you're passionate about web performance and this topic, then there's a lot of help available.
Thank you very much, Rocky. I love the discussion. So guys, today we had Rocky, who, as I said, in my mind is a top one person if I think about the web performance, if I think about improvements, if I think about web performance community. We discussed today different web performance toolings, the difference between Commerce Cloud tooling and external tooling, the free apps that you can just pick up right now. We will list them down in the description to this podcast or this video if you watched us on the YouTube. So you can just go and take advantage of them. Also, if you join Salesforce Commerce Cloud Slack community in the web performance channel, you can search for the Rockey post about how you can use the APIs to your CDN and just improve your website right away. Maybe the next step we'll do just pin it to the channel so it's easier accessible. That's if it's not yet. And just in general, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Rockey. Thank you for listening to us, and see you next time.